On everybody, thank you for all the good wishes and excited to be back. One of the reasons I'm excited to be back is a chance to talk to this guy, the longtime KGO talk show host. He is a scholar, a lecturer, a student of presidential history, and an author. He is the great John Rothman. Hi, John. Nice to have
Hi,
you
Mark.
here.
And I want to start.
I can't hear John. There we go.
Yeah. I wanted to just start by saying one of the great privileges was to interview your father and your mother by extension on KGO. I treasure the inscribed copy of one of your father's books that he was kind enough to send me and has a special place in my library. And I want you to know I was thinking of you. And, you know, he was such a great guy and such a remarkable individual. And please tell your mother I send my love as well. Just a great couple, and they were lucky to have you as a son, and you were lucky to have them as parents.
I definitely agree with the latter, and I'll tell you that you were so always supportive of them and my father, and thank you for that. John, tell me first about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decisions are coming down quickly. The latest is a leak. It's a document that essentially says that and they say it was accidentally posted online, that in the state of Idaho, and Kim, you can correct me on this because I don't have the copy in front of me, but essentially that there will be an exception for various emergencies. They'll allow involvement by doctors to essentially intervene on the part of a would-be mother. This is anything? I mean, is it a sign that the court sees issues with total ban, or what do you make of this?
There are two things. One, that it's a leak. The same thing happened exactly a year ago when Roe v. Wade was reversed and the Dobbs decision came down. Second thing is it's on the eve of the presidential discussion. I'm not going to dignify it by calling it a debate. It's a joint appearance. And that may add fodder to the fire. So I'm very interested in it. We're really waiting for the big decision on Donald Trump and the question of presidential immunity, blanket presidential immunity. And that is the one that I'm really waiting for. And evidently the court is holding back. We now know that they're going to issue decisions tomorrow and Friday, and they evidently will go into next week. There are 10 key decisions, although with this leak, it's really 9 decisions that have to come down. And it's just a fascinating moment. And may I just close by saying that we're not just voting for a president, we'll be voting for the man who will become president, either Trump or Biden, who will nominate future justices. And
That's
that
right.
means if Trump wins, you get one point of view and Biden another point of view.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and I again, this would allow emergency room doctors to intervene and to perform abortions in certain situations. But so that's the leak, and that's the pending decision to which John is
could
talking
change,
about.
which could change. We don't know for sure.
Right, but I like your point, which is that again, it comes at this moment, which is right before the. I also don't. I say it's. I always make the point. It's not a debate. It's a TV show. Is what the way I say it. But it's a critical TV show. It's an important TV show, and in this bizarre media world and culture that we live in, sadly, it's got oversized importance. But that said, this sort of refocuses or reminds people of this issue, which is the Supreme Court and women's reproductive rights. And so I think you make a really good point when you suggest that, hey, this thing coming at this time may allow it to be woven into the conversation tomorrow night. The debate prep thing that we've seen, essentially Trump is out on the stump and golfing. He is doing some prep. It's not fair to say that he's exclusively stumping and golfing, but that does appear to be the lion's share of his time. Biden, Camp David, guys playing Trump, mock debates, mock situations, handicap this whole thing for me.
Well, the first thing you have to know is we don't judge a person by who wins. We judge a person by who makes a mistake. The person who makes the mistake is the one who takes the headlines. And so I don't know what prep you can really do. I'm an old debater, as you know, both high school and college. I was a national champion. So believe me, I've been through this. These are not debates. The last real debate we had was Harold Stassen versus Thomas E. Dewey on May the 17th, 1948, up in Portland. And it was a debate on resolve the Communist Party should be abolished in the United States. So when you're not dealing with a single topic, it's not a debate. These are candidate forums. These are places where what we're really going to be doing is looking at how they respond to issues, how they react with each other, whether or not one of them makes a serious error. Always remember Michael Dukakis in the response to Bernard Shaw's question, what if your wife were raped? What about then with the death penalty? Or Gerald Ford, Eastern Europe is not occupied by Russia. I mean, these are the kinds of mistakes that we remember. And will this be critical? I think the most important single element we will take from this is that Joe Biden, if he can stand on the stage, as the Republicans like to say, and 90 minutes with a good, solid performance. And by the way, did you hear jacked up? Can you believe the Republicans are accusing the president of the United States of needing an amphetamine to keep himself going? I mean, it's nonsense. By the way, who was the one president that we know used amphetamines? Anybody know? John F. Kennedy, on the eve of his summit with Nikita Khrushchev in Vienna in 1961. Look,
he certainly needed a lot of painkillers. There's no question about it. There's a lot about the drug abuse in the White House. It's being suggested by Ronnie Jackson, for example.
Let's remind everybody who Ronnie Jackson is, and let's point out that Donald Trump couldn't remember the name of his own doctor. It was Ronnie Johnson, according to him.
Well, the reason that was funny is because he was making a point about how Biden can't remember anything, doesn't know where he is, and then he says he can't remember. And right away, he refers to Ronnie Johnson instead of Ronnie Jackson. Yeah, but remind everybody, because it's a great story, Ronnie Jackson is a disgraced doctor and member of the White House staff. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's now a member of Congress. So, look, the simple truth
he was.
is,
so are you going to tell everybody, or you want me to tell them?
Oh, go ahead, please.
No,
I love hearing you.
No, what I was going to say is that during his White House stint, he talked about the fact in writing that Donald Trump was in better physical shape than likely any other president who'd ever served in office. He also, and this has been widely reported, was doling out amphetamines, doling out opioids, doling out Xanax like it was Halloween candy. So this idea that Ronnie Jackson would in any way suggest that the Biden administration is any way awash in cocaine or anything else is laughable. I mean, or Adderall. I mean, this is a guy who had sacks full of it and was tossing it office to office when he was in power. So it's utterly absurd. So I just wanted to make that point.
He's now a member of the House of Representatives, a Republican from Texas, and it's shameful. But this is what we've come down to. And may I remind you, we know one of the two candidates was not honest about his health, and that was Donald Trump, who had COVID.
Right.
And, you know, look, what I'm really interested in tomorrow night is their appearance. That's what's going to matter. Who makes the first mistake? What issues will they raise? I made the observation this morning that in 90 minutes, they're not going to have a lot of time to do it, but I'm interested in their foreign policy stance. These are major issues. But may I also indicate to you, this is the last presidential election in which I will be younger than both candidates running for president. So I'm not ruling out a run in 2020.
Well, the way we're going, you might have another one. Yeah, I'm telling you, the age just keeps getting bumped up. I think.
And who will Trump take for vice president? I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the big question is, who will Trump name as a vice presidential candidate? And let me tell you, it's narrowed, but I'm going to make one observation nobody's made. They keep talking about Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is not eligible to be vice president because he's a senator from the state of Florida. And where does Donald Trump live? In Florida. And you can't
he could change that residence, though, couldn't he, John?
From the same state,
couldn't
which
he
your
change that
father would
residence?
have pointed out immediately.
I'm sorry. Could he not change that residence?
Oh, then it's a real question. He's a United States senator from Florida. And where's he going to change it?
Right. No, I'm sorry. I meant Trump.
Oh, yes. Trump could leave Florida. By the way, we have one example of that, and that was George Bush and Dick Cheney, because Cheney was registered in Texas, and I was on KGO at the time. How did we really know that he was going to be the nominee? When he switched his voting registration to Wyoming. And of course,
well, I know one thing that's not going to happen if he wants Marco Rubio. He's not going to say, well, you're right. It goes up against the Constitution. I guess I can't do it. I mean, that is absolutely not in Donald Trump's mind at any time around anything that he does.
But you know what stuns me? Where are the commentators on, frankly, all the networks, CNN, Fox, MSNBC? Nobody's pointed that out. I don't understand these people. Don't they understand their history?
I mean, I think they're playing the next hand, which is likely, that they'll work around it somehow. But you're right; it doesn't get enough oxygen.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on a few of these things today that were handed down by the Supreme Court, also on the pressuring of social media companies to do certain things. The argument before the court was that the Biden administration was urging social media to do certain things. The allegation was that there was misinformation about COVID-19 up on social media sites, and the Biden administration was urging the removal of that misinformation. And the 2 red states and 5 social media companies brought a case to the Supreme Court and sued federal officials. Certain federal officials were actually named. And again, designating their communications to various tech platforms, and suggested that that should be a violation of law to mess with that information on social media platforms. The court ruled that the Biden administration, those federal officials, were not in violation of the law. Or, I ask you, was it more of a punt on that? And they said, well, we don't want to rule on that. We just will tell you that you 5 states and social media companies don't have legal standing to bring this case before the court.
That's what it was. It was a punt. But it is a victory of sorts for the Biden administration. So this is the Supreme Court we're dealing with. And I want to emphasize again, what matters in this election is who is elected president, because only the president nominates people for the Supreme Court.
Amy Coney Barrett wrote, without proof of an ongoing pressure campaign, it is entirely speculative that the platform's future moderation decisions will be attributable even in part to the Biden administration officials who were named as defendants. So again, it was both a decision on standing, as I said, that you don't have standing to bring this case, you plaintiffs, but also you could see in the Coney Barrett decision that, and in her statement, that it sounds like there's no there for the Supreme Court anyway.
I agree with your analysis.
Now I want to ask you about Israel. One of the things that was interesting that I saw, this just broke, was that, and I think you're just the guy to ask, and this sort of transcends any kind of, before everybody gets their backup, Israel and Hamas and Gaza thing. This goes to a long-term and long-time position, which is that the extreme religious factions in Israel don't have to get drafted. They don't have to serve in the military.
May I explain this?
Yeah, please. That's exactly why I bring it up, because I think you can explain it. Go ahead.
When Israel was created in 1948, David Ben-Gurion and the Jewish people had suffered this terrible thing in the Holocaust, where all the great scholars had been destroyed. The Nazis targeted initially the scholars and killed them all. And so Ben-Gurion said, okay, if you are a scholar, if you're studying in a yeshiva, a religious school, you must continue to study, because what you're doing is as important as the soldiers on the front line. And that was accepted in Israel. They did create a program called the Hesder program, where you could be religious, study, and also serve in the army. And a few people took advantage of that. But what is now a ruling by the Israeli Supreme Court, a unanimous decision, by the way, is that simply being religious doesn't exempt you from service. And so the call is now out for them to serve. Now, let me explain to you, this creates a tremendous internal crisis in Israel.
Thank you. This is the other 3D chess of this decision. Go ahead.
There is, in Israel, they have a multi-party system. It's not a two-party system. And among the parties are the religious parties. The religious parties, who can support left or right, depending upon who works with them, is very interested in maintaining these exemptions. So there will be a massive demonstration this weekend by religious Haredim, the religious faction, against this Supreme Court ruling. But it now is the law, and that's the way it is. They might try to change it in the Knesset, but the votes are not there for that. It just won't happen. So
in terms of political coalitions, though, John, you can, and this is why I really wanted to speak with you about this. This is bad again for Netanyahu, who was a defender of this existing policy. Am I right?
Yeah, but as were the liberals in Israel when they were in power, because there are 120 seats in the Knesset. You need 61 seats to form a government.
I
The
see.
religious parties have been in every government except 4 brief occasions. And the religious parties say, okay, we'll come in, we'll support you on XYZ, but you have to support us. So this is the game that's being played. Netanyahu is concerned because if his government is toppled and he loses the job of prime minister, he will almost certainly go to jail because of corruption charges. So it's a real paradox.
But that's interesting that you point to the fact that they're a valuable coalition for both sides, is what you're saying.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
You know, I always remember that the first time that Rabin's government fell in 1976 was because planes from the United States landed in Israel on the Sabbath. And that was the excuse for the religious parties to pull out. They thought they were doing the right thing. What did they end up with? Menachem Begin as prime minister, which for their point of view was just fine because Begin was willing to deal with them, as was Rabin, as was one of the great men in Israel, Shimon Peres. So it's a very interesting dynamic that people need to be aware of because the Israeli political system is built on coalitions and, you know, politics makes very strange bedfellows.
Well, and this is a really good point. It's not like the U.S. that way. I mean, certainly you build political coalitions and alliances in this country, but it's different. A parliamentary system is so very different. The question about the ripple effects of Israel-Gaza, of course, extend all the way to the presidency, but I'm really more curious about the results of the Bowman primary from last night in New York. Maybe you can reset things. We did mention it, and I think Kim covered the story in the news. But Bowman may very well have lost that primary because of his unapologetic position against Israel. And I want to say it was, if it wasn't pro-Hamas, it was pro-Hamas adjacent.
Listen, Bowman made the statement that there were 75 years of occupation. That goes back to 1948. He was talking about the elimination of Israel. It was a completely offensive thing, but then Bowman is not a smart guy. You know why? He pulled a fire alarm in order to put a vote in the Congress. And he denied it until they had the video that proved it. I think he would have lost no matter what. But the fact is, he's taken very extreme positions, and his district was not willing to embrace those positions. He lost 2-1 essentially, and so this is a real commentary. People in congressional districts pay attention when you can win, as he did by 10,000 votes, by 10% rather. It's a big victory, and frankly, he deserved to lose. And even progressives that I know in New York said, we're not going to vote for this guy. By the way, the guy who won is also a progressive, been in city government for 30 years, known for his reputation of being a progressive. But I don't think these are progressives. I think someone like Bowman is a retrogressive. He's not progressive. He's going the opposite direction, and he deserved to lose, and he did.
The military, I should say the militant arguments, I think just don't work anymore. I was making this point a bit earlier. I really feel as though we're essentially a moderate nation, and these extreme positions, left and right, they don't have traction. Now, if you seize power, you can, of course, make your extreme positions prominent in American life and screw what's popular. I mean, I think that's what's happened in the Supreme Court. I think that was a power grab. I understand that it was technically legal what they did, but it was a power grab to hold that seat out during the Obama administration. Senator Bowman was a clown in Congress. His screaming matches with MAGAs brought him down to their level, says John.
It was just terrible. But let me remind you, you're right about extremism. The Republican Party nominated Barry Goldwater in 1964, who lost overwhelmingly because he was viewed as an extremist. The Democrats nominated George McGovern in 1972. The same thing happened to McGovern. Not that they were really extremists, but they were portrayed as being extreme. And I believe in Richard Nixon's old dictum. To win a primary, you run to the left if you're a Democrat, to the right if you're a Republican. But to win the election, you got to run to the center. You know what I'll be watching tomorrow night? What candidate runs to the center fastest? And the problem that Donald Trump has is his base. He cannot betray his base. And Joe Biden, on the other hand, represents an inclusive Democratic Party that has people from all different positions. So one of the reasons that right now, today, I give a heads up to Biden on the odds of re-election is because Trump's base can't expand. It's too narrow. Joe Biden is trying to expand his base. And I think that will be one of the points that he will make tomorrow night in the joint appearance, not a debate, a joint appearance, which I think will have that impact.
Well, two things, John. First of all, what you're saying, I think, is indisputably true. But in this screwed up way in which elections go down here with an electoral college, this whole thing comes down to fewer than 50,000 votes. So while he may lose the political battle at the popular vote level by even 10 million votes, he could still very well win the election for the reasons I just mentioned.
He could. And that's why the battleground states, the roughly 6 battleground states, are the ones we're going to be watching. And
and that's why those battleground states are being dumped with a ton of GOP money and a ton, to be fair, a ton of Dem money.
Of course.
But I mean, those voters are being carpet bombed by every kind of negative ad, positive ad, policy ad, mashups showing that Biden, doesn't know where he is, mashups showing that Trump is an unhinged crazy. I did want to ask you if you have a prediction. I have 2 questions about the debate, and then I'll let you go. One is if you have a
You'll never let me go, Mark. I'll be with you forever.
I can't quit you, John. But the prediction as to the outcome tomorrow night, I know both teams are going to claim they won, but I'm also curious about what would you ask a Trump and what would you ask a Biden if you were moderating the debate?
Who won the election of 2020? Because if Trump says that he won, I think it has a huge impact. That would be the question to him. To Joe Biden, the real question is, given your age, do you feel comfortable running for another term? And I think those are the 2 legitimate questions that have to be asked.
Well, I'll tell you, I think you've wasted your question to Trump, and I'm very surprised. And I don't understand it. I give you one question to ask Trump, and your question is, did you win the 2020 election?
Why are you yelling?
He's obviously going to say no. It's his whole thing. I mean, where have you been for the last 3.5 years?
Why are you yelling?
But the beauty of it is that everyone will see.
Everyone's already seen it, John. It's not a good question. Let me give you the good question.
What question would you pose?
Yeah, all right.
Why are you yelling?
All right. So the question you want to ask is, sir, we have a lot of policy issues to get to tonight. We have a lot of things confronting this nation, and we hope to get to as much policy as we can. Many are curious. Why did you take thousands of documents from the White House and keep them in insecure locations across Mar-a-Lago and elsewhere? Yeah. Can you speak to that? I have no
problem with that question, except he'll answer it by saying Biden did the same thing. Look what happened in Delaware.
But
not specific enough.
I want to hear him say it then. Say it. Biden did the same thing.
Then I'll go with you on that. And you might ask him a question on a woman's right to choose, because women, you can see in all the polls, people under the age of 30 are voting overwhelmingly for Biden. But by the way,
and given a follow-up, I would say, well, Biden didn't take thousands of documents, sir. I mean, you took truckloads and truckloads of documents, and then you evaded the subpoena. I mean, just explain to me what you were thinking, and then I just want to hear him answer that.
Don't talk to me that way.
All right.
What question to Biden?
What's your question for Biden? Would be, this is good. I sorry, but I don't think the age question. Well, I think
has to address it.
The age question isn't a bad one. It's just that I know he has a preloaded response. I don't feel
all of these questions will be preloaded responses.
Sure. No, I agree. Even as I say it, I know that. But I might ask this question. And by the way, this is an easy one too. But I would say, you promised to return this country to normalcy and to try to build coalitions of consensus. How do you think that's going?
See, Mark, with all due respect, it's too vague.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in specific questions that really force an answer. You don't want them rambling about all these things. You want to direct it. That's why the moderators are so important, because they're the ones that are going to be asking the questions. And let me tell you something. this is going to be a moment when everybody in America and the world will be listening. By the way, what about Ukraine? What about NATO? What about the Middle East?
Right.
Do you ask those tough
that's
questions?
that's really I think where on policy you can begin to nail down.
Did you listen to my podcast this morning?
Yeah.
That was essentially what I said in my podcast.
Yeah.
So
Cheryl
anyway,
agrees with you. He'll say Biden did the same thing.
of course he will. And
Unprepared, Mark, says Ricky. Yeah, I was not expecting to answer. I thought I was the host. I didn't think I had to answer the question. So you're right.
you know, the great thing, Mark, is you and I can banter, and it's not a question of winning or losing.
Thank you,
us,
John.
It's a question of learning and getting the information out.
Yes, it is. And I love the way, as I often said, I have no idea what Rothman just said, but I love the way he said it.
What do you think? What do you think about asking Trump, how can we trust you to leave at the end of your term?
It's not applicable because the term limits are set by the Constitution.
He's already said he thinks he should have a third term.
I know, but he can't have a third term. You could ask him, if I can amend that, are you in favor of repealing the 22nd Amendment?
Yeah, don't you?
But
he doesn't know what that is.
okay, but wait. But even if the
Can you let him
22nd
finish, sir?
Amendment were repealed, even if it were repealed, like Harry Truman in 1952 and beyond, Harry Truman could have run forever because the constitutional provision applies to when you were elected president. And so I think clearly Trump would have a problem because under that provision, if you understand the Constitution that way, when he would be elected, the 22nd Amendment would be in force and he couldn't change it.
I do think the NATO questions and questions pertaining to Ukraine are great substantive policy questions. This from Brian. You'll have to help me. I can't. There it is. John, what a blessing for you being with Mark today. Mark, according to Jewish tradition, the numeric meaning of the number 18 means life. As you continue your journey in life, we walk with you, bro, with love. That's so sweet. Wow. Brian Wright, great supporter of the show, and that's a beautiful
And may
sentiment.
I say, Brian,
Big shout out.
He's one of the smartest guys I know. And Brian, I send you lots of love.
Oh, that's terrific. That's really great. Well, it's nice that you guys have that love fest, John. I like as much love as I can get on this show to offset my negativity. That's what I like. I like a little love.
I just wish you'd have more confidence in yourself, Mark.
John, this is from No Contendo. Obama should make an ad clowning Trump for golfing as opposed to preparing. Considering that Trump said Obama did more golfing than governing. That's true. I mean, of course, there was plenty of projection in the comments that Trump made. Thanks for the $5 super
Big
chat.
shout out.
I do think, actually, John is assuming that we will still be living under anything resembling the Constitution if the fascists win in 2024, says James Watson. I do think there is something, a reasonable point. I mean, things could really dramatically change. That certainly is their plan, to stay in power.
That's what Project 2025 is all about.
Which I'd like to discuss. I'd like to do a separate segment with you on 2025, if we can, on that, on their stated objectives and the methodology and strategies that they've actually laid out as to how to get to that objective.
It's funny.
I was going to,
Go ahead. I was going to
ask
tell
you
you a story, but I won't.
Okay, I was going to ask
Can
you.
you let him finish, sir?
Yeah, can you let me finish, please?
No.
So I was going to just platform off that one comment about Obama. It still feels to me as though Obama is the Democratic Party rock star, the best campaigner in the crew, the smartest, most nimble, most gifted when it comes to oratory. And I'm wondering when you see them really, taking the Ferrari out of the driveway and getting it out onto the track.
Well, it's very clear. I thought you were describing Bill Clinton because the words you just used describing Obama was the description of Bill Clinton, who seemed to be the Democratic Party superstar. The reality is you can be a superstar, but unless you control the levers of power, there's very little you can do it. And the man who controls the levers of power in the Democratic Party is Joe Biden. And let me assure you, if Joe Biden, for some reason, bows out or something happens to him and he can't run, the successor will be Kamala Harris, who will have the full backing, not only of the Biden delegates to the convention, but also of Barack Obama. So, I mean, the Democratic Party future, in a sense, is discernible, although if you noticed yesterday's State of the Union speech by Gavin Newsom, which we could have talked about at great length, and I have a podcast about that just coming out, he's definitely running for president. And he definitely sees himself as the future of the Democratic Party. So
we're doing a whole X-ray of the Newsom situation and his speech on Monday's show. So
may I quickly just point out, who did he open quoting? The first Democrat elected governor of California in the 20th century, Culbert Olson. And I was so amused because Governor Olson was a fascinating man. He only served one term. Earl Warren beat him in the 42 election. But who would know Culbert Olson except for a political historian? But
John, we love you. Got to wrap. Thank you, my
you
friend.
do? Okay.
Around the Political World with John Rothman is the podcast. Grab it, subscribe, support John. He's also, of course,
it's free.
Yeah, the Voice of San Francisco. And you can find him across the great web, The Voice of San Francisco with John Rothman. John,
thank you very much.
All right. Great seeing you, my friend. Thanks for the nice words, too.